Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 72, featuring the top 5 Borg episodes. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse. I am the host of the TrekRanks podcast. And tonight we are starting our official countdown to Picard, as in Star Trek Picard, which is going to be the 7th live-action Star Trek television series. I cannot wait for that. I could not be more excited that we have more new Trek coming our way. And the fact that we're going to be seeing the continuation of, really my all-time favorite Star Trek character, and I can't even wrap my head around it. So part of the build-up to Picard here at TrekRanks, we are going to do 3 shows to help kind of preview the series and get us ready for the show. And this is the first in that series, and you can find out the next 2 topics at the end of this show. We'll talk about those. So we're starting this one with kind of an obvious one. If you've seen any of the trailers or heard anything about the show, the Borg are going to be featured in Star Trek Picard. So we're starting with our top 5 Borg episodes. It's going to be a huge part of the show. And this will be the 3rd time that we have done an episode of TrekRanks where we've featured a favorite alien race of Star Trek. So previously we've done the top 5 Klingon episodes in episode 10, and we did our top 5 Romulan episodes back on episode 34. So we are jumping into the Borg this episode. And all right, enough of that extended preview. Let's talk about our guests for tonight, both who are jumping into their second go around on TrekRanks, and both who we are connecting from the UK sector here on this episode of TrekRanks. First up is our friend Jen Howse, who we had on previously for episode 59 of the top 5 series doctors, since she's a medical practitioner herself. So Jen, you're there. Great to have you back.
Yeah, it's great to be back. Really looking forward to talking today.
This is going to be awesome. And we got to meet at STLV last year after we had you on. So
yeah.
That was awesome. Hopefully that will happen again or at DST.
So I'm hoping so.
Also joining us tonight is our friend Rob Chapman, who was previously on TrekRanks way back on episode 18. One of my favorite topics, our top 5 two-parters. Love that one. And Rob is the creator of the awesome Trek Book Club on Twitter. All around great guy. Rob, you there?
I'm here, yeah. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be talking all about the Borg.
Yes, and Star Trek Picard. This is the perfect topic to do it. All right, well, let's get into it so we can start rolling here. I'll break down our quick TrekRanks recalibration now.
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
First up, as regular listeners will know by now, general order number 1 here at the TrekRanks podcast, that we love Trek and we love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to get the conversation started.
Negotiation is irrelevant. You will be assimilated.
It's not about being right or definitive in any way. It's about sharing the things we love about Star Trek. We love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery and short treks as well. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast.
Black alert. Black alert.
And a reminder that this episode of TrekRanks is current through Discovery Season 2 and through 5 of the 6 short treks for Season 2. Not sure if you guys have seen those yet, but they don't feature the Borg, so we're probably not going to talk about those. All right, and then one final reminder that we use episodes as shorthand, but the 13 films are always in play as well.
Open hailing frequencies. Hailing frequencies open. On viewer.
And you can find TrekRanks on the net access interface links at trekranks.com. And you can contact me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra. And you can also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. At 609-512-5527. And if you don't want to do a voicemail, you can always just record your own picks and DM me. over on Twitter. Okay, so to wrap it up, Jen and Rob, why don't you guys let everyone know how they can get a hold of you on the Net Access interface? Jen.
Yeah, Twitter is usually the best place to find me. I'm at Dr. Jen Throws. That's DrJenThrows. And yeah, feel free to come and follow me and talk Star Trek.
Love it. And Rob, how about you, man?
Yep, same for me. Twitter's the best place. You can find me I'm at Trekkie Rob, and you can also find me on Twitter via the Star Trek Book Club that I run, which is at Trek Book Club, where we read a Star Trek book each month, and then we come on Twitter and discuss it together. So you can find me on both of those places.
The super popular Star Trek Book Club, which is awesome, man. It's such a cool thing you've done there. I don't think you even started that the last time we had you on.
No, I don't think. No, I hadn't actually.
Crazy. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I think we're ready to jump into our Level One Diagnostic to get into today's show.
Diagnostic cycle will be complete in 20 seconds.
Okay, guys, so without getting into your Prime Directives too much, let's just talk a little bit about the Borg. Jen, when you think of the Borg, what do you think of the Borg? do you like Borg stories? Do you think they were overused or underused? What's your take on the Borg?
I think sometimes people sort of think that, particularly in Voyager, they got a bit overused, but actually there's not that many Borg episodes out there when you start looking. The thing that strikes me most about them is just how relentless they are. I mean, I think they're one of the most terrifying enemies that there is in Trek, and it's just that relentless. You knock one down and they just keep coming, and they're just plain terrifying. First time I saw them, they gave me nightmares.
I think that's kind of how I feel about them too. The relentlessness of them is really effective. I think the Voyager thing, if people really look at it, is a bad rap that they somehow desensitize the Borg or something.
Yeah, because when you actually watch some of the episodes that are there, so there's not that many actually Borg episodes in Voyager.
Right.
The ones they are, they're scary.
And each one kind of fits really nicely when you really break it down. Yeah. And like you said, when I looked at the number of Borg episodes, I actually thought there was going to be more. And we'll talk about that in a second. But Rob, how about you, man? What's your take on the Borg?
Yeah, I agree with everything Jen just said about, the whole, they just keep coming. There's so many of them. The first thing I think of when I think of the Borg is the whole, the Borg threat, resistance is futile. So no matter how, you can't, there's no point in resisting them because there's millions upon millions of drones, thousands upon thousands of ships. Like Jen said, they keep coming at you. It's just, they're absolutely relentless. That's a brilliant word to use to describe them. They're insidious. And it's hopeless to resist them. Or at least it seems hopeless to resist them. Right.
And even when they win, it's never like over. So, all right, I usually prep you guys for questions I'm going to ask here in the diagnostic cycle, but I'm going to surprise you with one that I came up with doing my prep. So really quick, just a fun question. I want to get your guys' opinion. Which Borg Queen do you prefer? Is it Alice Krige, who's like the bookend queen from the original Star Trek First Contact and the finale of Voyager Endgame, or did you prefer Susanna Thompson, who's one of my favorite actors, one of the most underrated genre actors out there? I love her. Jen, who did you prefer?
Oh, that's difficult. They're both actually really good.
I know.
And the things, and they're excellent. Everything else, I think I'd probably have to go with Alice Krige. She was also the first autograph we ever got at a convention.
Oh, that's cool.
I was waiting for somebody and told Ian to go off and get her autograph and make sure he had something ready for her to sign. So he stood there in front of her, looking blank with nothing, and she was very kind and helped him work out what she should sign, because at DST they don't give you any pitch or anything, you have to take something. So she helped him and sorted him out, so she was lovely.
That's Ian, Jen's husband, who is at official Howse, Howsei on Twitter. Great dude. That is a great story. I love it. Rob, how about you, man? Who's your rank? Who are you giving the rank to?
Yeah, it is really tough because one of my favourite Voyager episodes, I really like Unimatrix Zero, and Susanna Thompson is brilliant in that. And they play them so differently. But But I think, yeah, it's got to go to Alice Krieger because she's the first person you think of when you think of the Borg Queen. And funnily enough, I was spent a train journey with Alice Krieger when I was at DST last year. At the end of the convention, she was on the platform, and I ended up catching the train back home half the journey with her. So I actually shared a train with the Borg Queen.
I remember you tweeting about that. That is awesome.
Very random.
And I know Alice Krieger is amazing. The original, so creepy. But I had to go with Susanna Thompson. I just adore her. She's been in so many great shows, and I just thought it was so hard. I mean, how impossible is it to step into that role and for it to be so seamless where it's not, it was, I mean, regardless of who you pick or rank, it obviously wasn't a step down to have Susanna Thompson there. I mean, you never hear someone go, well, Susanna Thompson was a disaster. It was amazing how they were both so effective.
Yeah, she did an amazing job, and she managed to come in and do some similar. It was similar enough that it was still the Borg Queen, but it was different enough that it was a different Queen. I think she did it really well.
Exactly. Okay, well, let's jump into our Prime Directives and figure out how we came up with our list.
I do not concur with your captain's decision.
She's following our Prime Directive.
Define Prime Directive.
All right, so we've already dived into it a bit here. So let's figure out how you guys narrow down your list. Jen, how did you what was your Prime Directive for breaking down your final picks?
Well, my first thing was obviously it had to be an episode that featured the Borg.
That's a key element to the Prime Directive.
So I ended up with quite a long list there. And then I narrowed it down by taking out, there were some episodes that I really liked in that list, but then I realised the things I liked about them weren't actually the Borg parts of the story. So that narrowed it down a little bit. So it had to be a Borg episode where the Borg parts of the story were the bits that I really liked.
That makes sense. Okay, Rob, how about you, man? How did you break it down?
Yeah, I started with everything that the Borg featured in, whether that was the collective, a cube, a single drone, or like a pivotal Star Trek Borg character. But then I thought I kind of did the same as Jen. The Borg had to play a central part in the episode. It couldn't just be that they were in it, but actually I liked it for another reason. So then I narrowed it down to episodes where the Borg are the central part, or the Borg character is the central part. And I also thought about Borg episodes that highlighted what the Borg, or who the Borg are, what they're about, that highlighted specific Borg characters at their best. And also Borg episodes that I immediately think of when I think of the Borg. So actually this was fairly straightforward because I didn't do lots of toing and froing. It was pretty much the episodes I thought of to begin with. I pretty much stuck with them. There was only one or two slight changes, so it wasn't too difficult this time around.
So that is interesting you say that, because I was just about to say for my Prime Directive, this is probably the easiest list I've ever put together, and the one where I've deviated the least just from what I knew instantly were going to be my top picks. So I'll start by saying that there's, depending on how you look at it, there's about 20 to 25 Borg episodes legitimately that you could say are Borg episodes and don't just kind of feature the Borg as a hologram like in Flesh and Blood, there's a Borg in the background kind of thing. So yeah, I usually mix it up with some big heavy hitters and a few deep cut picks, and some niche picks. But from the get go, I knew my top 4 episodes. I knew the order instantly, which left that one spot, number 5, and that was brutal for me. That was absolutely brutal to try to figure out what was the one episode at number 5 I was going to place from about 10 other episodes that I was toying with. We're probably going to have a lot of duplicates, but that happens when we do some of these finite topics like this. So, all right, third Automaticon, let's get you to introduce us to the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
Thank you, third Automaticon. And as always, just a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, each of us will reveal our 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease our pick. Then we'll announce our pick for our top 5 Borg episode, and we'll discuss why that made our list. And at the end, we'll go through a few secondary system selections for the picks that maybe just missed our list. And as always, if we have any duplicates, which we will tonight, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. Okay, Jen, let's kick this off with you. What's your number 5 pick for a Borg episode?
Okay, so my number 5 pick, this is probably has the least Borg in it of any of the episodes, but I think the Borg play a really important part in this. So my 5 words are Wolf 359 sets the scene, hashtag she's gone. And the episode is DS9, season 1, Emissary.
Oh, wow. As soon as I heard your 5 words and a hashtag, I was like, wow, is she going with Emissary? That is awesome.
Yeah. So I say, like, the Borg's never a threat in DS9.
Yeah.
But it sets up why Sisko is where he's at. You actually see the Battle of World 359, which I don't think you've really seen before, because all you ever saw in Best of Both Worlds was the Aftermath. And it sort of starts off the Sisko arc. And so he's like lost his wife, he's raising his son alone, he's sort of disillusioned and contemplating whether he belongs in Starfleet, all because of what happened with the Borg. And then the scenes with Picard and Sisko are great. Because again, this is not something you've seen before, because people must be sort of blaming Picard for what happened, but you never see it until that conversation. And Picard's face is when Sisko brings up the Borg and that battle. I think it's just fantastic. And as I say, you never mention the Borg again, really, but it just sets the tone for Sisko there.
This is amazing. And I'm going to talk about this in our next episode, because I was just doing my notes for it, which we're going to talk about at the end of the show what that topic is. But here I was thinking DS9 wasn't going to be featured in this episode. And that's an amazing pick. Absolutely brilliant, because it was a huge part of the setup for who Sisko is.
I would have thought that after 3 years spent at the Utopia Planitia Yards that you would be ready for a change.
I have a son that I'm raising alone, Captain. This is not the ideal environment.
Unfortunately, as Starfleet officers, we do not always have the luxury to serve in an ideal environment.
I realize that, sir, and I'm investigating the possibility of returning to Earth for civilian service.
Perhaps Starfleet Command should be considering a replacement for you.
That's probably a good idea.
I'll look into it. In the meantime, however...
In the meantime, I will do the job I've been ordered to do to the best of my ability, sir.
Dismissed.
I remember when I watched this episode for the first time, it bothered me, right? When I was watching Emissary, when it debuted, I was like, man, I really don't like that these two guys, that Sisko's treating Picard. He's my favorite. He's treating him this way. And of course, that's the point. And once the show's over and you see it again, you live with it and you see who Sisko is, and you just kind of realize, man, that is a brilliant narrative choice that they made to have Sisko and Picard at odds like that right from the beginning because of the Borg. I love this pick. Genius. Rob, what's your take on this outside the box pick?
Yeah, great pick. I'm really glad someone picked that, because I don't think many people would think of it, because like you said, it's, even though the Borg don't really feature in it very much. I mean, I don't think you see a single drone. You see the Borg cube. They're only in it for the first, couple of minutes. Yep. But it's so crucial to the setup of DS9. If that didn't happen, Jennifer Sisko would still be alive, and the whole the way DS9 starts will be completely different. So it's hugely important. So yeah, great pick.
I love this. So Jen, are you now presenting the option that every single Picard episode after the Best of Both Worlds is a Borg episode?
Oh. Well.
Okay, not that far, but that's a genius pick. I absolutely love it. Okay, Rob, how about you? What's your number 5 pick?
So my number 5 pick is 5 words. Is I speak for the Borg. Hashtag tertiary adjunct of Unimetric 01. It's Voyager's season 3, episode 26, and season 4, episode 1, Scorpion parts 1 and 2.
Of course.
A lot more obvious than Jen's pick. But this had to be in my list, because Scorpion is the start of Voyager's many, many battles and interactions with the Borg. So it kind of really introduces the Borg. I think we see them in a few episodes before, but this is the big introduction. And this episode has it all. It has the introduction of the Borg to Star Trek Voyager.
Yep.
It has epic space battles. On top of that, it has an enemy that's even deadlier than the Borg, species 8472.
Right.
It introduces one of the most popular Borg characters to Star Trek, 7 of 9. And we see her join the crew of Voyager, which has a massive impact on Voyager and how the rest of the show plays out. And, she's such a central character in Voyager, fans adore. Yeah, it's this fantastic episode. Right from the beginning, we see, in TNG, if we thought one Borg cube was bad enough, at the beginning of this episode, we see 15 Borg cubes hurtle towards Voyager, which, immediately, I think they pass Voyager and don't even bother interacting with Voyager, which leaves you, questioning what are they doing, where are they going, why aren't they trying to assimilate Voyager? Yeah. We see Janeway and Voyager entering into alliance with the Borg.
Yep.
We meet 7 of 9, who's acting as this Borg liaison. Yeah, we see epic battle scenes. We see 7 of 9 betrays at the end, and she once the Borg have got their way, she then tries to assimilate them all, and Chakotay breaks the link, and then she joins the crew. So Scorpion's often cited as the point in which Voyager really takes it up a notch, and the quality of the episodes really improves. It's a fantastic Borg episode.
I always think of this as the iconic series-defining episode for Voyager in terms of kind of their their key the key launch to kind of their last few seasons, and obviously introducing 7 of 9. I'm glad you mentioned species 8472. I mean, CGI aliens for the first time, which is really cool. There's a million reasons to pick this episode for a top 5 Borg episode. It's absolutely amazing, and it's just an incredible science fiction story that stands on its own. But when you combine everything else into it, it's just sets it above and beyond. Jen, what's your take on Scorpion?
It's a great episode, and it has everything. It's got fights, it's got personal drama, it's got Harry Kim nearly dying again.
Again.
Oh, Harry.
I really do enjoy this episode. I'm really glad you picked it, because it is one that I had a real difficult pick for between 3 for one of my choices, and I had to drop Scorpion, which was really difficult to do. And it's definitely it's a really good introduction of the Borg into Voyager. Just to throw, it is a threat.
It's a Voyager high point, to say the least.
Definitely.
No doubt. Okay, well, let's go to my number 5 pick to close out the round. My 5 words in the hashtag: 22nd century Borg, not futile. Hashtag Arctic 1, and it is Enterprise Season 2, Episode 23, Regeneration, which is one of my favorite Enterprise episodes. Brilliant episode. Hey, should this episode work? Probably not. but if you can do a Borg temporal causality loop type episode with TNG and Star Trek First Contact, then why can't you expand that and include Enterprise in that loop as well? And it totally works. It's so much fun. It's just a amazing epic story. It's Mike Sussman and Phyllis Strong are the the Enterprise writers who wrote this episode, and they had this great vibe of kind of recreating one of my favorite classic 50s sci-fi films, A Thing from Another World, which of course was updated as The Thing in 1980. And it's just an episode with huge scope, really kind of touches on every corner of the Borg in the 22nd century with assimilation. They got nanoprobes. I love that the Phlox gets kind of half assimilated, and they do it all without kind of really breaking breaking that canon and the continuity effect of where the Borg are in the timeline and being introduced in the 23rd century and then seeing them in the 21st century in First Contact. I just love it. I just think it's genius and extremely well done. Jen, what's your take on Regeneration from Enterprise?
I remember when I first watched this one, and you sort of get into the first few minutes and think, is this what they're doing? Is this going to work? I'm not sure. And then it worked.
Right.
And I just, from first time I watched it, I thought it was brilliant. It's probably one of the one of the Enterprise episodes I do go back and watch quite a bit. It's odd because it probably shouldn't work, but it just does.
Right.
There's some great scenes in there, and like when Phlox is worried about all these animals and Hoshi comes in to feed them and make sure they're seen.
I love that moment. It's one of these episodes that I feel like gets better with time too. It just never gets old or dated. Rob, what's your take on regeneration?
Yeah, I remember first watching this episode and thinking, oh God, is that where they're going with this? Is it the Borg? Exactly. I'm getting really excited that the Borg were going to be in Enterprise. Yeah, it was really good. It's a really clever way of bringing the Borg into Enterprise. And I think I'm right. At the end, I like the bit where I can't remember whether it was Archer that he's like, they're in the Delta Quadrant, which is so many, tens of thousands of light years away. So it's going to be hundreds of years before they. Obviously, we know that they are going to make their way to Earth.
Yeah.
It's a great wink because literally T'Pol says, well, that's 200 years away. So literally that would take them 200 years to get here. So
we've got plenty of time.
That is on point. I love it.
That worked.
Okay, let's go to round 4. Jen, what's your number 4 Borg episode?
Okay, so my 5 words are many more than just 7. # Return of the Midnight Snacker. It's Voyager Season 5, Episode 7, Infinite Regress.
Oh, that's an awesome pick, too. Another deep cut.
This was actually one of the first episodes I thought of when I was thinking of Borg episodes. It just, first one that came to mind, really. And I really enjoy it. I think Jeri Ryan's great in it. She's really good at
incredible
different characters, and like her Ferengi and the Klingon. It's brilliant.
Yep.
And then the mind meld sequence, I mean, it's just creepy. And it kind of, we've seen the mass destruction of the Borg, sort of destroying planets, destroying ships, and it's sort of big scale. This gives you more of an idea of it on that individual scale of how many people it destroyed, because we haven't seen that kind of individual basis before. And some of the characters, like the mother looking for a son who's at Wall 359 and those kind of things, it's really upsetting at times. Mm-hmm. And it just really shows that devastation the Borg's caused.
It's an amazing new perspective of the Borg to see it from that angle. It's really incredibly well done. Obviously, the performance from Jeri Ryan is all-time great in Trek history. It's just so good. And it's another clever way to tell a Borg story that hasn't been told before in a unique way.
Yeah, because we're seeing cities taken out, big craters and ships sort of dead in space.
Yep.
And you don't see that, the individual, the people that are involved in the same, or we haven't done until this point.
Yep, absolutely brilliant. Rob, what's your take on Infinite Regress?
Yeah, great choice. I wouldn't have, I did think of it, but it didn't immediately strike me as an obvious choice. But yeah, great pick. Like you said, shows the more personal side of what the Borg do and what they inflict on people. Yeah, like you say, we see the destruction of worlds and ships, but it's people and how they destroy people's lives and the people that are left behind. And yeah, and it also shows, like, Jeri Ryan's acting skills in this are just phenomenal. Kind of similar to when she's in, is it Body and Soul, when she's pretending to be the Doctor. She's really, really good in this one. So yeah, great pick.
And props to your 5 words and a hashtag again, because as soon as I heard Midnight Snacker, I was like, is she picking Infinite Regress? That is awesome. Another great deep cut pick. Okay, Rob, what's your number 4 pick?
For my number 4, 5 words are, do I have a name? And the hashtag is hashtag I am Hugh. It's TNG Season 5, Episode 23, I Borg.
Classic.
So again, another classic one. I could not pick this. It's such an important Borg episode. I think it's the first time we see a Borg drone disconnected from the hive mind.
Yeah,
it's we see Jonathan Delarco for the first time as a guest star as Hugh, and I for one am really excited to see him in the upcoming Star Trek Picard series and see what he's been doing since this episode. Did he escape the Borg? Is he resisting them? Is he helping others to resist? He could be the leader of some sort of Borg resistance. So I'm really excited to see what he's up to. And Jonathan Delarco gives a brilliant performance as Hugh. Really touching. We see him, Hugh, slowly reclaim a sense of individuality, and he persuades the crew of the Enterprise not to use him as a weapon against the Borg through the fact that he's reasserting his individuality, his emotion, shows his compassion. We see some great scenes between Hugh and Geordi, and there's like a really touching and genuine friendship that develops between them, and they genuinely care about each other. Hugh doesn't. When he's beamed into Picard's ready room, and Picard, is pretending to be Locutus and says, the ship's got to be assimilated, Geordi's got to be assimilated, and Hugh's genuinely really upset that he doesn't want Geordi to be assimilated, and likewise Geordi fights for Hugh's rights to survive, along with Dr. Crusher.
Yep. And
I think it's really important as well because Hugh kind of forces Picard to face what happened to him when a Borg assimilated him. Because at first Picard refuses to meet him, and even Guinan is understandably really angry. Doesn't want to meet Hugh. Doesn't want to have anything to do with him. But when she meets him, she changes her mind and then persuades Picard. Hugh's a great character. Really important Borg character, and a really important episode, especially with the upcoming Picard series.
Yeah, this is quintessential TNG and quintessential Trek. It's just such a great Star Trek story. I cannot wait to see Jonathan Del Arco. It's the biggest surprise about the Picard series was when we found out Hugh was going to be a central part of this story. That just blew me away, and
absolutely, yeah,
tells you how big they're going with this thing in terms of the story they're going to try and tell. I love this episode. It was my toughest cut. It's on my secondary systems. It's just an amazingly emotional, powerful performance, and it's a great Picard leadership moment where he's very set on one thing, but listens to his people and then changes his tune and understands that that's a better way, and then asks everybody to come up with another plan. So I love this episode. Jen, what's your take on iBorg?
Yeah, again, it's an episode I love, and again, it was a really, really tough cut for my list. I'm really looking forward to seeing Hugh again. It was such an amazing character, and we saw a little bit of what happens in his future later on in TNG, but we didn't leave him in a desperately good place, and I really want to see what's to him, because the friendship with Geordi that they carry on, it'd be nice to see where it went, because
it's a great point.
It's very touching, and he becomes so human, and then has to go back and knows what he's going back to. Again, it was a really upsetting episode at the end.
It is, and the beginning of Descent, where you kind of see where he was in that kind of turmoil, which is great. And like you said, Rob, I think this is, not only this is the first time you see a disconnected Borg, this is really the first Borg standalone story. Yeah. And it's brilliant the way it just completely changed gears from where the first couple of Borg representations in TNG to this really quiet story of, there's something more here to these automatons. Brilliant Trek. Absolutely love it. Okay, I'm next. Okay, let's close out round 4 with my number 4 pick. My 5 words and a hashtag. Line must be drawn here. Hashtag. The Borg won't stay on Deck 16. And of course, it is Star Trek First Contact from TNG, the 8th Star Trek film and 2nd TNG film. It's my number 2 ranked film on TrekRanks. There's some real hidden depth and groundwork at play for what's happening with the Borg. That's a big part of my top three picks. But that's not to say that those things don't also exist here in First Contact, because it's obvious it's huge in terms of Picard's development and the introduction of the Borg Queen. But the reason I picked it is because it's such a great movie with just this huge scope. And it's something that we really hadn't seen in Trek yet, in terms of everything they were trying to do with the time travel and the storytelling. It was time travel into an era that was still the future, which I love when that happens. So it was, 2 new pieces or eras of Trek being seen. And I love when Zeph from Cochrane showing up and the Borg and the 2050s time frame. I just love this movie and seeing the Borg on the big screen and learning a little bit more about them and how the assimilation works, and just a brilliant film and just a fun Borg movie. So, Rob, what's your take on First Contact? Brilliant
film. I love First Contact. Again, I know I said it about one of my other choices. First Contact has it all. You've got the Borg, you've got the epic battle at the beginning, you've got time travel, you've got the Borg Queen, you've got comedy, drama, romance, action. It's a fantastic film.
It's just a great movie. No doubt. Jen, what's your take on First Contact?
My favorite TNG film, definitely. It's I mean, you said it has it all. It's got everything. It looks great on a big screen. Sadly, I watched it the other day on my little tiny iPad, and you kind of lose a little bit on that. But I remember seeing it at the pictures for the first time, and it just blew me away. It was absolutely amazing.
Every movie loses a little something on your iPad. Okay, awesome. Let's go to the soup round and our round 3 picks. Jen, what is your number 3 Borg episode?
Right. So my 5 words are: I wish to assimilate more. # should not exist. And it's Voyager season 5 episode 2, Drone.
All your 5 words and hashtags are making me emotional. Because you're like, oh my God, it's Drone, just freaking Drone.
I said about Hugh with the ending so sad, and again, this is another one where the ending just makes me cry every time.
Every time.
I'm going to be traumatized by the end of this because all these are so sad episodes.
You are unique.
I was never meant to be. As long as I exist, you are in danger. All life on Voyager is in danger.
We can talk about this later.
Allow the doctor to proceed. Lower the force field.
His synapses are failing.
You must comply.
I will not.
You must comply. Please. You are hurting me.
You will adapt.
Like my last choice, it's one of the first episodes I thought of actually. It's a great opening sequence with Borg, with Seven practicing smiling. I think that's lovely. But the whole thing with the new drone, I think the drone looks fantastic. It's Borg, but it's not Borg. It's modern, but it is a futuristic 29th century Borg. And the interactions it has with the crew as it's learning and talking to Delix about cooking is fantastic. And then, that sacrifice at the end. Yeah,
it's amazing. I love this episode. It's a great contrast with iBorg that Rob just picked in terms of a Borg kind of coming to grips with not being Borg, which you can hear a great. Make sure you listen to Snap Trek. Go check out Snap Trek, the podcast. Our friends Jen and Ross, they did a great Snap Trek episode with iBorg and Drone, comparing those two. But my favorite thing about this episode, and it's something that when I first watched it, I was so mentally prepared for the storytelling to be this rote kind of, okay, he's obviously going to go bad. They're going to have to fight this guy. And I was just waiting for that to happen the whole episode. I just assumed that's obviously where they're going to go with this story. And it affected my enjoyment of it to the point where when it didn't happen, I was like, oh, well, that's weird. They never went there. He was just a good guy. And so I remember kind of not dismissing it, but not really embracing it when I first watched it. So over the years, every time I rewatch this episode just continues to go up TrekRanks because of that. It's so smart to tell this story where he's just a good guy trying to learn and trying to be part of it. And, so many TV shows, you would see something like this and it would just be, it's the standard. He's going to be the bad guy and they're going to have to fight him. Yeah. Brilliant choice. They didn't do that. And it makes so emotional. Such a great character. J. Paul Boehmer, the actor, is is brilliant in that role. I love this episode. Rob, what's your take on Drone?
Yeah, I love this episode too. It's brilliant. It hits you right in the feels. That end scene. If you don't get a little teary-eyed at that, then yeah, you're made of solid, sterner stuff than I am.
Absolutely. So emotional. Great acting. Okay, Rob, what's your soup round pick, number 3?
So my number 3 pick, 5 words and a hashtag, are a random convergence of technologies, hashtag you will adapt. It's Voyager Season 5, Episode 2, Drone.
Well, okay, there we go. So let's, oh gosh, let's get emotional again. So why'd you pick it, Rob?
It is quite possibly my favourite Borg episode.
Wow.
I'd watched it. I think it's probably one of the ones I've watched the most, or at least one of the Voyager episodes I've watched the most. And even despite the fact that we don't see or hear that much from the collective, it is definitely still a Borg episode. It introduces this central character of One, and the fact that even if you not just him, it builds upon Seven's character as well. So we get to see Seven explore her humanity in greater depth. She experiences like a maternal side by almost like tutoring One, in her efforts to instruct him on the ways of humanity. And we see her having to deal with the emotions surrounding loss at the end. She gets so attached to him, and he sacrifices himself to save her and to save Voyager, because he realizes if he stays alive, the Borg will not stop pursuing them.
Yeah.
It's a vital episode, not just because of One, but because of Seven's journey to reclaim her own humanity and individuality. So and One himself is brilliant. The fact that we don't ever see a drone like him, his futuristic drone with 29th century technology. He's got this reactive body armor. I think Janeway says he's got multi-dimensional adaptability. Don't know what the hell that is, but it sounds amazing. Internal transporters. Him alone, he takes out a Borg sphere. He's pretty amazing.
Can you enhance our phasers?
Yes.
Do it. When he's finished, target their propulsion system. Be prepared to jump to warp, Mr. Paris.
Enhancements complete. You may fire.
What happened? They inverted our phaser beam with a feedback pulse.
They just took out our warp drive.
Your technology is limited. I cannot enhance it further. I must interface with the collective. I can disrupt their vessel from within.
They will try to assimilate you.
They will fail.
He's got this childlike curiosity, which is just so adorable.
Yep.
And I love his relationships and interactions with the crew, particularly with Neelix and the Doctor. We get some great moments when I think he reports to Janeway, and she wants to know how he's been doing, and he says he's assimilated all this information, and including the culinary delights of the Delta Quadrant, which clearly he's been spending time with Neelix.
Yeah, I
think that's really sweet.
I love that bit. Yeah, when you just think, he's been sitting in the mess hall with Neelix, learning about his cooking.
Yeah, so good.
But at the end of that episode gets me every single time. Is when you see Seven say, she repeats, I think, what she says earlier on in the episode. She says, "You're hurting me," and then he replies to her, which is why I had it as my hashtag.
Yeah.
You will adapt, and it's that moment where I lose all control and blub like a baby.
Yeah, that is some great writing, great acting. You will adapt. It's so good. Love this episode. Jen, any final comments on Drone?
I think we've said it all.
It's brilliant. I'm so glad you guys picked it. Fantastic. All right, well, let's close out the Voyager soup round with my Voyager pick. We all had Voyager in round 3. My 5 words and a hashtag riveting Borg backstory for 7, hashtag needle fingers, and it is Dark Frontier from Voyager Season 5, Episode 15 and 16. And up to this point, we've seen a lot of Borg characters, but for me, 7 of 9 changed the game, and they started telling this really fascinating and layered story about what it meant to be Borg through 7. She's an amazing character, one of my all-time favorites. And by the way, she was dismissed early on by people that, they were on their soapbox about the kind of headline grabbing sex appeal and the ratings grab. But people who are paying attention actually saw what Jerry Ryan brought to this role and her incredible performances. And she's amazing. She's in my top 10 for character ranks at TrekRanks. And Dark Frontier for me is the highlight for 7, and it's got this amazing kind of nature versus nurture story going on in the background. It was presented as a 2-hour feature movie when it aired, and it's just this amazing tug of war between two motherly figures in 7's life, with Janeway on one side and the Borg Queen on the other, which was really cool to kind of bring the Borg Queen in and have her trying to use 7 in a unique way for the Borg. And like I said previously, that this was presented as a 2-hour movie. And for me, there's nothing better than a 2-part episode of Trek. And I rank this one really high, higher than really any film in Trek history. I just love it. It's that good. You see the USS Raven. You see young Annika Hansen. I love the huge scope. This is a Brandon Braga and Joe Menosky script. And we got some Susanna Thompson as the Borg Queen. So one of my favorite episodes all time in Trek. Jen, what's your take on Dark Frontier?
Oh, this is a good episode. Again, this was one that I wanted on my list, but it couldn't quite make it on. It's the relationship between 7 and Janeway is great, and that kind of mother figure there, and then the Borg Queen sort of pulling her as well. And then I love all the flashbacks as well, and I like the hashtag the needle fingers names they give to the Borg. It always makes me giggle that bit. The actress that got to play the young Annika was really, really good.
So good.
She was excellent. Yeah, I do enjoy this episode, I have to say. And the one of the classic Janeway quote: "The 3 things to remember about being a starship captain: keep your shirt tucked in, go down with the ship, and never abandon a member of your crew."
Oh, that's great. I forgot about that line. So good. Yeah. The flashback scenes are just amazing. Again, that's the kind of thing that makes us feel like a big production movie, because they're going to these scenes that are separate from everything, and they're just really, really well done. Her parents are acted extremely well. They make some questionable choices. Yep. Rob, what's your take on Dark Frontier?
Yeah, another great episode. Exploring Seven's past, tells us more about her parents and how she became assimilated. I think there's a bit where the Doctor, going back to what you just said about her parents and questionable choices. I think there's a part where the Doctor says, criticizes them for, putting their own daughter in harm's way. Yeah. Although their technology helps Voyager.
True. Good. It's a good point.
They do definitely make questionable choices. But I think by this point, it shows how important a part of Voyager 7 has become in such a short time, because they're willing to risk everything to get her back. No, great choice.
Yeah, a lot of fun this episode. Okay, let's go to round 2. Jen, what's your number 2 pick?
Right, my number 2. My 5 words are classic cliffhanger with captured captain. #fire. TNG season 3, episode 26, season 4, episode 1. Best of both worlds.
There we go.
Had to be in there somewhere.
Yep.
I'd say it's one of those classic episodes, isn't it? I know I watched it in first run here. It probably didn't have quite the same impact as it probably did if you're watching it in the States for first time round, because we got it 2 years late and we only had to wait a week between episodes. So,
I was going to say, why is that? That explains it.
So yeah, it was 1992 when we finally got it. So yeah, season 6 was already on in the US. So we all, there was no suspense as to whether Picard would survive, but it was still a good episode. And one thing I really...
But before you say that, well, I will never complain again about having to wait for 3 months between the two, since you had to wait 2 years for both.
Yes.
That's way worse. Okay, sorry, keep going, Jen.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a classic episode, isn't it? I think one thing that I always thought was really clever is that they didn't ever show the battle of War 359, because I think if they had, it would have taken you out of the episode, because the budget just wouldn't have been big enough, the effects wouldn't have been big enough. There would have been 2 ships and a Borg cube, and that'd been it. But just seeing the aftermath and just listing off the ships that had been destroyed really hit home, and then actually showing the battle until later in DS9, when they actually had a bit more technology and a bit more budget and the computer technology to do it, I think worked really well.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, this episode kind of cemented Trek's return to TV, where it was in a place where it could no longer be questioned once these episodes aired. And I mean, in the US, obviously, the summer cliffhanger was incredible, and there had been cliffhangers before, but this really kind of set the benchmark and the tipping point for how big you could go on your storytelling. It's this is iconic all-time Trek and Picard, to say the least. Rob, what's your take on Best of Both Worlds?
Yeah, I mean, you can't really get more iconic than this episode. It is the Borg episode, really. I think if you ask most people, name a Borg episode, it'd probably be this one. It's brilliant. Again, it's another one that's got it all: battle sequences, action, drama. The taking Picard and assimilating him and using him against the Enterprise and the Federation. It's a brilliant episode.
And we didn't mention the amazing Commander Shelby. Incredible character. So, okay, well, Rob, you got 2 more picks. Let's hear your number 2 pick.
So my number 2 pick, 5 words on a hashtag. I am Locutus of Borg. Hashtag Mr. Worf. Fire. So me and Jen are clearly on the same wavelength here. So yeah, it's Best of Both Worlds again. Yeah, massively iconic episode, as we said. Introduces Locutus of Borg, another big Borg character. We see the legend that is Captain Jean-Luc Picard abducted and assimilated by the Borg. And it just makes you think, if the Borg can take Starfleet's finest and turn him against his own people, then what hope has the Enterprise and the Federation got against the Borg? It's the first time we see what the Borg are capable of, and in terms of assimilation and how they, can turn people against their own people, and we see that horrifying scene when Picard is mutilated, and as he's being assimilated, we see that single tear run down his eye because he's helpless to resist.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got the epic, I think, as Jen mentioned, the epic battle scene between the Enterprise and the Borg cube. And although we don't see the battle, we see the after effects of War 359 with all those destroyed starships, which, as we said earlier, is really important because it starts off DS9 and gives us a story of Sisko having to raise his son without his wife. And like you just said, Jim, it gives us the awesomely sassy and forthright Lieutenant Commander Shelby. She's a brilliant, strong, ambitious character. And I love the way she shakes things up on the Enterprise and keeps Riker on his toes. I love Shelby. She's such a brilliant character.
I love that you called her sassy. I've never heard her described that way, but that is a perfect description of her.
And of course, yeah, we get the epic cliffhanger at the end of season 3 with Riker having to decide between, saving the Enterprise and, firing on his captain, his friend.
It's incredible.
Yeah, so it's just an iconic Borg episode, popular with Star Trek fans, important in Star Trek history. It's great.
Well, I'll add one more thing. We also have the iconic Ron Jones score from this episode, his music. And I know people have heard me say before that Ron Jones is probably my least favorite of all the Star Trek music composers, which means he's awesome because I love them all, but he's my least favorite. But for this episode. This is an incredible musical score. It's so dynamic. It's so unique. It's for me, it's his best work, to say the least. So, amazing. And Elizabeth Dennehy, of course, played Shelby. She was fantastic. Jen, anything to add on the Best of Both Worlds?
The other thing I like about Best of Both Worlds is the way they managed to actually defeat the Borg, because in the end, it's not with firepower, it's just putting them to sleep.
Yes.
In there, sleep, data, sleep, and you must be exhausted. Yeah, I think that's a really clever way to do it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
And it's Picard that tells them that to put them to sleep. So you see him resisting. So it's yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I'm glad you brought that up. Cool. Okay, well, let's go close out round 2 with my pick. 5 words and a hashtag. I couldn't help it. Hashtag it's my nature. And it is Voyager Season 3 and Season 4, Scorpion, the absolutely, as I said before, just kind of defining, iconic episode for Voyager. I love this episode. I love everything about it. I love when Chakotay tells that great story about the Scorpion catching a ride on the Fox across the river and ends up killing them both because it's his nature. It's really just a brilliant 2 hours of Trek. It resets Voyager in a way that kind of sets the tone for the series for the last 4 seasons. And I already said it a little bit before with 7 of 9 that it's just a stroke of genius to add that character to that ship and give that kind of foil and tutelage and friendship to to Janeway. And yeah, one of my favorite characters. I love it. It's just a really dense and amazing story that they tell in this episode. It's another Brandon Braga, Joe Banaski script. I love it. Love Jerry Ryan. Love Scorpion. Any last items you guys want to add on Scorpion?
No, just that it was a really tough cut for me. It very nearly missed.
Yeah, it's that good. I mean, it's basically the Best of Both Worlds for Voyager when you break it down.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Rob, you have one thing?
No, I'm glad you brought up the whole that Chakotay's Scorpion and the Fox story.
Yeah.
That's really important. And also the conflict in this episode between Chakotay and Janeway.
Yeah, it's really strong.
Chakotay can pretty much sums up what's going to happen in the whole episode really early on, and Janeway kind of ignores him.
He's not wrong. All right, let's go to round 1 and our top Borg episodes. Jen, what do you got?
Right. Well, my first one, I've actually got 2 5 words, and I couldn't decide between them, so I'll give you both of them.
Let's do it.
So the first 5 words is first impressions of Delta Quadrant. It's not safe out here. Hashtag they will be coming. And it's TNG Season 2, Episode 16, Q Who.
You are awesome for picking Q Who. That is such a great number 1 pick. I can't wait to talk about this. Go ahead, Jen.
So, this just had to be my number 1. It's the first time we ever see the Borg, and we were in Season 2 of TNG. Season 1, they've tried to introduce some bad guys. They introduced the Ferengis. It went horribly wrong. It was not great. And then they come up with the Borg, and they just get it right. The whole episode is just so creepy. Q is at his scariest, to be honest. He comes in and throws them across the Delta Quadrant. They don't really know what's happening. And then that first scene when you see the first Borg just appearing in engineering, and nobody knows what to do, and it just ignores them and does its thing. And then they kill it, and then it goes to attack them and they kill it, and then the next one just comes in, ignores them, takes them. And the way it's written, the music, it just creates that creepy atmosphere the whole time. And the effect when they cut the saucer section, and they cut that sort of section out of the saucer section, that again, it's fantastic effect.
Yeah,
just is plain terrifying.
It's terrifying.
I think it's just from the start, you just get the feeling that they really are the enemy, and there's no stopping them. And in the end, there really is no way that the Enterprise can stop them. Q helps in the end, but there's not a lot they can do, and they know they're coming, but what can they do about it?
Yeah, this episode has it all. And as much as I was saying earlier, how I don't think they ever really wasted the Borg. I think the Borg were always a kind of a relentless threat. This episode is the pinnacle of that feeling of dread, of just like, I mean, because when you, again, I say this a lot, but sometimes you have to transport yourself back to the first time you watch something and remember that feeling in those moments, because the first time you watched this, not knowing anything about the Borg, it was bizarre. It was terrifying. It was like, there's an enemy that you can't talk to, and they're just going to bowl you over with their power and strength and technology, and they don't care. They literally won't listen to a word you say. It was amazing the way it was presented, how terrifying it was, the way they integrated Q and had it be far enough away where it was this going to be this ominous threat kind of hanging over until we saw him again. Yeah, it's amazing. I'll say right now, I was on my toughest cut list, and I made a note that I know at some point we're going to do top 5 Q episodes, and this will be in my top 5 Q episodes. So I decided to keep it out of mine. But I'm really glad somebody picked it, because it really is to launch the Borg or any kind of species in this alien race in this way is just amazing. It was a 100% home run. And by the way, it's another Picard defining episode too. At the end of this episode, he's basically just saying, okay, I know my only play here is to throw my hands up and say, hey, you were right. We're not ready. We're not strong enough. We're not big enough. We're not bad enough. So can you help us? Can you get us out of here? And I love that, because it's just so much about what a good leader does when you need to, and not have to always be the blustering hero. Brilliant stuff.
The Borg is the ultimate user. They're unlike any threat your Federation has ever faced. They're not interested in political conquest, wealth, or power as you know it. They're simply interested in your ship, its technology. They've identified it as something they can consume.
You brought us here, you exposed us to it, and you cost us the lives of our shipmates.
Oh, please.
Number one, 18 of our people have died. Please, tell us this is one of your illusions.
Oh, no. This is as real as your so-called life gets.
Rob, what's your take on... I was thinking you guys wouldn't have a duplicate in round 1, but I might be wrong. So what's your take on Q-Who?
Yeah, great pick. Really glad you picked it. Yeah, it's so important. Introduction of the Borg. And yeah, we know we've got this incredibly ominous enemy that's on their way now. And it's, they're terrifying. They're like nothing we've seen before. And it's so important. Someone had to pick this episode because it introduces them. And the fact that, I mean, when did this air? The late 80s?
It was 90.
Yeah, so they introduced the Borg in the early 90s, and we're still talking about them. They're still featuring. They even in Star Trek Picard, they're featuring as an important part. So yeah, someone had to pick this episode. It's brilliant, iconic, fantastic Borg episode.
It's incredible, absolutely worthy of a number 1 position. Okay, well, Rob, sounds like you have something different. So let's go to your number 1 pick. What do you got?
So my number 1 pick, 5 words and a hashtag. I bring order to chaos. Hashtag watch your futures end. It's Star Trek First Contact.
All right. Yes, of course. That's another iconic one. So, all right, go for it. What are your thoughts on First Contact?
I feel like I've said this about every single choice I've had.
We do that a lot on TrekRanks. So.
Again, this film has it all. It has everything you could possibly want from a Borg episode: action, drama, romance, comedy, epic battles, insidious villains, time travel. We get to see First Contacts and loads more beside that.
I don't get it. I thought you said this was all just a bunch of holograms. If it's holograms...
I disengaged the safety protocols. Without them, even a holographic bullet can kill.
What are you doing?
I'm looking for the neuroprocessor. Every Borg has one. It's like a memory chip. It will contain a record of all the instructions this Borg has been receiving from the collective.
All right. Jean-Luc, it's one of your uniforms.
Yes, this was Ensign Lynch.
Tough luck, huh?
I gotta get to the bridge.
We get such a fantastic story with the time travel and the Borg going back to try and stop first contact. We get to meet the Borg Queen for the first time, and she's such a deliciously evil character that plays such a crucial part in the Star Trek universe, both in TNG movies and in Voyager. And she represents everything the Borg are. She's cruel, full of malice. She's unstoppable. She's evil. And we get to see the Enterprise Eve for the first time in all its glory. We get some brilliant action scenes. I love it's besides the Dominion War. I think the beginning of First Contact is my favourite battle sequence with the Borg cube and the Federation fleet, and the cameo from the Defiant, the Enterprise swooping in to save the day. Yeah, and we also get the phaser fights in the it's Picard and Co in the corridors trying to repel the Borg, and we get Picard, Worf, and Lieutenant Hawk try and stop the Borg, use the deflector, and even though it's not really a funny film, there are some great comedy moments in this film that I really like. The tough little shut line.
You told him about the statue? That's my favorite line.
Yeah. The whole Deanna drunk moment. We see the EMH scene with the Borg. It's brilliant. And we get that brilliant speech from Picard when he's with Lily about the line must be drawn here, this far and no further. And fantastic characters with the Borg Queen, Lily, Zephyr Cochrane. Yeah, we get to see the first contact between humans and the Vulcans.
Oh, that's right. That's another thing. I mean, that's why this is such a fun, awesome, incredible movie. And so popular. So popular.
Great soundtrack as well. I love the soundtrack for it.
Soundtrack is another great point. It's absolutely incredible. So, all right, awesome pick. I think we've summed it up on First Contact. So we had all Voyager picks in round 3, and now in round 1 we're going to have all TNG picks because, of course, my number 1, 5 words and a hashtag. I am Locutus of Borg. Hashtag. From this day forward, you shall service us. And it's the best of both worlds, TNG Season 3 and 4.
Mr. Worf. Fire.
I wasn't going to do this topic and screw around and pretend like the best of both worlds is not the best single Borg episode of all time. Because for me, it just simply is the pinnacle of Trek. I love it. We've talked about it pretty much in detail here. I think the one thing I'm going to add here is a note I had that I'm just going to I want to kind of get rid of this narrative that the second hour of the best of both worlds isn't that good. That's a common thing that you hear from people like, it was disappointing in this. I'm done with that because listen, is it as good as the first hour? No. I mean, how could it be? The first hour is amazing, but it's a really, really cleverly done, especially against the face of this impossible foe that you can't overcome. And it's really clever the way they do it. And I love this first bait and switch moment where Riker's going to execute the plan that they discussed, knowing that Locutus knows what they know and is going to do it. But really his ulterior mission is to send Worf and Data to go get Picard back. And he tricks them and gets him back. And that eventually leads them to what Jen mentioned before, just Picard telling them, hey, all you got to do is put these guys to sleep and get out of there. So I love that. I love the second hour. I think it's fantastic, and I don't like the narrative that it's not that good, because I think people have kind of bought into that without really remembering it correctly. So that's my take. Any final comments on the best of both worlds, Jen or Rob?
I think we've said it all. I love it all.
So good.
So many
it's brilliant.
All right, props to Michael Piller. He wrote both parts. Legendary Star Trek writer and producer. Okay, well, let's jump into a few secondary systems picks here and see what just missed the list that maybe hasn't come up yet. Jen, anything on your list that we've missed? Most
of the my secondary system ones that were really tough to cut have already been mentioned. So First Contact, Scorpion, Dark Frontier, Regeneration, Iborg. The one that I kind of wanted to pick but I stopped myself doing was Descent. Partly because it's a Borg episode. The reason I really like it is because Crusher takes command of the Enterprise.
Yeah, right.
So that was my main reason for liking it. So I kind of excluded that on my Prime Directive, but I do like that episode.
It's also kind of almost more of a lore episode than a Borg episode.
Yeah, but it gets your second view of glimpse of Hugh and see where he's ended up after. Which is not in a great place really. So I hope things get better for him when we see him again.
We'll find out in a few weeks. Rob, anything that hasn't been mentioned yet on your end?
The Mega Directive I thought was a good one about the whole drive for Borg perfection. I don't think we said Survival Instinct. That was a good one with Seven and the other drones in her little Unimatrix.
Yep.
I really like Collective with the Borg children.
Oh, these are all great. I don't have any of these on my secondary system. Brilliant.
Even though it's more a 7 episode, but I thought I really like Repentance in season 7.
Yep.
We see Seven's growth. But the two toughest ones I cut, which I really wanted to include, were Unimatrix Zero.
Yep.
And Endgame.
I had both of those, yeah. Endgame's an epic, underrated finale, and the Borg are great in it.
I love in Unimatrix Zero, my favourite part is where, I think it's Susanna Thompson, isn't it, in Unimatrix Zero, where Janeway's in Unimatrix Zero and the Queen is watching through the drones, what the drone can see.
Oh, right.
And Janeway picks up the batleth and strikes the drone, and you just see the Borg Queen go, Janeway.
Yeah, that is a great moment. That's great. Those are great picks. I got to tell you, I love the Omega Directive pick. I hadn't thought of that. It's not a Borg episode per se, but Seven's desire is all about the Borg, so it kind of is. That's a clever pick. I like it. My other toughest cut, I had Iborg and Q-Who as my toughest cuts, but my other one, I really wanted to pick it. I've always told myself I would pick this if we did this episode, and it just missed out. We've talked about it recently on a few episodes of TrekRanks. It is Unity. It's really hard for me to keep it off. It's a Voyager episode. It's really the first time the Borg are seen on Voyager, and it was a really smart way to introduce the Borg before they did Scorpion.
Yeah.
And it's this episode where Chakotay ends up on this planet of former drones, and they don't really tell him they're drones, and then he kind of figures it out when they're all connected, and it's a really smart, subtle way to introduce the Borg without making them a big bad. Love that underrated episode. Check it out.
I watched this the other day because I was considering this for my list, and then it just got pushed down a little bit, but I do love that episode.
Yeah.
And it's also really important because it gives Chakotay a glimpse into what it's like in the Borg, which is really important in Scorpion because he has that knowledge which Janeway doesn't have, which is why she should have listened to him.
Yeah, it gives him the ability to do the Scorpion break of Seven at the end, which tries to take over. So I also love Imperfection. It's an underrated, just little episode where Icheb basically is going to sacrifice himself to save Seven, and he survives, of course, but they need a new coracle node or something, and the only way to do it is for Icheb to give his to Seven and then try to live without one. And it's really clever and well done. Smart. I love The Raven. It's the Seven backstory in advance of Dark Frontier. Not really a Borg episode, but a lot of Borg stuff in it. And my last one, of course, I had Drone on there. My last one I'll mention is Family, which, of course, not really a Borg episode, but a lot about the Borg. And that one just might be featured in a future episode of Trek Ranks here, previewing the Picard series. We shall see. And my last special shout out, because it's such a great ending, the final shot of Blood Fever when they are on that planet and they move the bushes and they find the Borg skeleton. There we go, book. And they find the Borg skeleton, and it's just brilliant. Love that ending. Okay, let's. Great job, guys. A really awesome conversation. I knew we'd have some deep cuts and also some big obvious picks and some duplicates. So let's jump into our regeneration cycle now and run through a recap of our picks.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, guys, let's run through a recap of our picks. Jen, how about you? Break down your top 5.
Okay, so my number 5 was DS9 Emissary. My number 4 choice was Voyager Infinite Regress. Number 3, again, was Voyager Drone. And then my number 2 pick was from TNG, Best of Both Worlds. And my number 1 pick was TNG Q Who.
Oh, that's great. So you had really cool. You had 3 series represented, 1 from DS9, 2 from Voyager, and 2 from TNG. And I'm going to be tallying up the total hours because we have so many 2-parters in movies here. So you had 2 2-hour episodes. So a grand total of 7 hours in your 5 hours of Trek. I love it. Rob, break down your pick.
So my number 5 was Voyager, Scorpion, parts 1 and 2. My number 4 was TNG, Borg. My number 3 pick was Voyager, Drone. My number 2 was TNG, The Best of Both Worlds, part 1 and 2. And my number 1 pick was Star Trek First Contact.
Love it. So you had you were all TNG and Voyager with 3 from TNG and 2 from Voyager, and you had 3 2-hour episodes with a grand total of 8 hours in your 5 hours of selection.
Not a Borg.
Very, very good. I'm going to put you guys to shame in that one now that I just looked at this. So my 5 picks were from Enterprise. I had Regeneration. My number 4 was Star Trek First Contact. The rest of these are all 2-parters. Star Trek First Contact, TNG. My number 3, Dark Frontier from Voyager. Number 2, Scorpion from Voyager. And number 1, The Best of Both Worlds from TNG. So I had 2 TNG episodes, 2 Voyager, and 1 from Enterprise for a grand total of 9 hours out of my possible 5 hours of Trek. We're expanding our Trek viewing and more to talk about. We had 4 duplicates on the evening, which we kind of figured would be the case. In our breakdown of series, obviously there was none in the original series, the Kelvin Timeline, or Discovery, as they have not featured the Borg at this point. But the other 4 series were all represented. We have Enterprise and Deep Space Nine each had 1 pick, and Voyager had 6, and TNG had 7 total picks, which kind of makes sense. That's what you would expect in terms of this breakdown. All right. That is fantastic. As we do every week, we've now entered a temporal causality loop. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The Enterprise has been caught up in a temporal causality loop, and I suspect that something similar may have happened to you.
And for this week's temporal causality loop, we're going to go all the way back to episode 69 in our top 5 Nog episodes. Super cool episode that we did celebrating the memory of Aaron Eisenberg. First up, we got a great voicemail I want to play right now from Stephen Pastron, who is at Stephen Pastran on Twitter. Really appreciate him taking the time to send this list over, which I edited a little bit because it got cut off at the end, but I love his picks, and he talks a little bit about why he thought Nog was such an important character in Trek.
What's up, TrekRanks? So this is for my list for my top 5 Nog episodes. You can get a hold of me and, let's talk Star Trek at my Twitter at Stephen, STEPHEN _Pastran, PASTRAN. So, my list of 5, number 5 is, the series finale with What You Leave Behind, with Nog being promoted. My number 4 pick is Treachery, Faith, and the Great River, and just pretty much every moment he has with Chief O'Brien. It's just, Nog being just such a great Ferengi, but also, combining it with his Starfleet, skills, that he's, earned at this point so late in the series. It's really nice. It was really nice to see him just kind of, just excel in both those. My number 3 pick is Homefront, season 4, episode 11. My number 2 pick is It's Only a Paper Moon, season 7, episode 10. And my number 5 pick is Heart of Stone, season 3, episode 14. And my 5 words and a hashtag are, Father's Hand and Uncle's Tenacity, hashtag I Just Need the Chance. Just to kind of back it up a little bit, when I was first getting into Star Trek, I kind of breezed my way through TOS, the movies, and TNG. And the first time I was watching DS9, I kind of kept it a slow pace. And oddly enough, Nog was a character I didn't really like at first. And it wasn't until this episode that he grabbed me. It's that scene at the end when he's talking to Cisco and he's explaining to him that, my father was a mechanical genius and, I don't want to end up like my father. He's not degrading his father. He's saying I am, like my 5 words say, I have my father's hand and my uncle's tenacity. I have something to offer. The first time I saw this episode, I cried. It really affected me personally, and Nog immediately became my favorite character. Seeing his arc, I still think nobody else in Star Trek and all the series and the movies has an arc quite like Nog's. He's definitely my favorite character in Deep Space Nine, and Deep Space Nine is my favorite Star Trek series. So I knew this was going to be my number 1.
And again, that was Stephen Pastron at Stephen Pastron on Twitter. Great picks. Love that voicemail. Really appreciate him taking the time to send it in. And before we close out this week's temporal causality loop, I want to relay just one more list from our friend Jamie McGregor, who's actually going to be our guest on the next episode of TrekRanks. And you can find Jamie on Twitter at jmac_ref. And his list was basically just 5 Nog quotes. This is really great, clever way to celebrate Aaron Eisenberg. Is number 5, and you shot Moogie, which of course is from the Magnificent Ferengi. Number 4, and it was sitting here on the bar all along, from Little Green Men when he was, I think it was Kira called him out for something that was missing from her quarters that she'd been looking for. Number 3, if you don't need money, then you certainly don't need mine. And that was Nog in the cards when he was when Jake was trying to borrow some of his money. Number 2, this is the sad one. I know I've got something to offer. I just need the chance to prove it. Of course, from Heart of Stone, just absolute heartbreaker. It's hard to even read it. Number 1, anything can happen to me, Vic, from It's Only a Paper Moon. Love this list. Really, really cool way to send in his top 5 Nog moments with those quotes. So, all right. Once again, appreciate everyone taking the time to send us their list for all of our topics. That's more than enough to get us out of this week's temporal causality loop. So keep those responses coming to us here at the TrekRanks podcast. You can send me your list at TrekRanks on Twitter, or you can send them to me at Enterprise Extra so we can retweet them. Really appreciate all the feedback. But we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of top 5 Borg episodes or any list from some of our past shows, and give us a call at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527. That's 609-512-LLAP. Or like I said before, you can always just record your comments and DM me and send me a link. We can download there as well. All right. Hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are going to continue our Picard series preview with a topic that I am extremely excited about. Been looking to do this one for a while. We're weeding it into our Picard series. It's our top 5 crossover moments. And why are we doing crossover episodes for Picard? Because as you've seen in the trailer, the Picard series is looking like one big major crossover. We've got 7 of 9 returning to Trek. We've got Hugh, who's going to be there. I guess that's not a crossover. But anyway, 7 of 9, that's a crossover. No words to explain how excited I am to see her again. And there's been a ton of these great crossover episodes and these big events in Trek history. And for us, that's not just a reference to like another series or something. This is about an actual tangible combination of series in one show where the characters from another show appear in that show. So crossover of characters is what that means. So Jen and Rob, if you had to think of one crossover moment or episode right off the top of your head to pick, what would you pick? Jen, your number 5 pick was a pretty good crossover.
Yeah. So. I think the first one that springs to mind is the end of Unification Part 1.
Yep.
When the Spock and he walks in and says, "And you have found him." That was
iconic.
That's just a classic.
Hard to get any bigger than that, or in Trek history. How about you, Rob? Any crossover moment you want to throw out there?
I don't know why. It's a random episode that pinged into my head, but when you've got, I think, is it in Voyagers? Is it Death Wish? When you've got Quinn and they bring Riker.
Yep.
Which I don't know why that pinged into my head, but that one. And
it's a good one.
You've got Worf coming onto DS9 in The Way of the Warrior. Would that count as a crossover?
That did. Well, it sure was at the start. That's a great point. Depending on your Prime Directive, you can argue season 4, 5, 6, and 7 is my pick as a crossover because now you got Worf in it. I love it. Those are great. Those are great picks. I hadn't thought of Worf. The Riker one is awesome when he shows up out of nowhere on Voyager. Love it. Awesome job, guys. All right, so before we wrap it up here, just a huge thanks to Jen Howse and Rob Chapman. It's great to have you guys both on the show. Any final subspace communications you guys want to relay before we depart? Jen?
Just say I've had great fun doing this. There's been a few episodes that I haven't watched for a while, so it's been great to go back and watch them all again. I've watched so much Borg in the last few days. I've had the last 2 days off work, and all I've done is watch Borg episodes. It's been fun to do.
Well, we always say TrekRanks homework is best homework. Rob, how about you, man?
Yeah, no, I echo what Jen said. Thanks so much for having me on. I've had lots of fun, and now I feel like I'm fully prepared for Star Trek Picard.
Yes, it's coming soon.
And
I cannot wait.
You don't have to wait 2 years for it, so just
that is a great thing for you guys. I can't even imagine having to live through that. Okay, just want to thank everyone again for engaging with us here on episode 72 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
Think of it this way. Every time you talk about yourself, you use the word we. We want this. We want that. You don't even know how to think of yourself as a single individual. You don't say, I want this or I am Hugh. We are all separate individuals. I am Geordi. I choose what I want to do with my life. I make decisions for myself. For somebody like me, losing that sense of individuality is almost worse than dying.
When you sleep, there are no other voices in your mind.
No.
Are you ever lonely?
Sometimes. But that's why we have friends.
Friends?
Sure. Someone you can talk to, who will be with you when you're lonely. Someone who makes you feel better.
Like Geordi and Hugh.
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
I am Locutus of Borg.
Why are you here?
This is a primitive culture. I am here to facilitate its incorporation. Identify yourself.
Hugh.
Identify yourself.
We are Hugh.
This is not a Borg identification.
3rd of 5.
This culture will be assimilated.
They do not wish it.
Irrelevant.
They will resist us.
Resistance is futile.
Resistance is not futile.